Casey, we will see you in many movies from Joe Wright, Stoner to Christopher Nolan, Oppenheimer, but you're working on a new movie, Fire Bright Star, which is based by a novel of Robert Homestead. I would like to know why you chose this story. What impressed you the most about this screenplay?
Well, Fire Bright Star is one of those things that I came across and I just read it and I loved it and I wasn't sure if it was a movie or not. It's a part of a trilogy by the same author, of course, and that is 3 generations of a family. And it's sort of about, one of the things that it's about is Americans at war. All these stories are set in different time periods and they're all about people in war. So it's about, if anything I would say they're sort of anti-war movies. They're about the perils of violence and the perpetuating violence begets more violence. And I grew up, my mother was very anti-war, very active in anti-war movements, and so that was something that mattered to me. It takes place in the American West, and which is a period that I love, but it's in a time when the West is becoming the contemporary society. And I like stories that are set in moments of time when the world is changing a lot, because it usually upends people's lives and it makes for a good conflict and good stories.
You support Stories from Tomorrow and New Heart Life, organization who provide art and education to the youngest generation. Do you think that art of any kind is the key we have to improve ourselves as human beings, especially for the young ones?
Heart?
Heart.
I guess that's one way of saying it. Both of those organizations are try to transform young people's lives who have been sort of underserved through storytelling and the arts. And that's something that I really believe in, the power of storytelling and the power of telling one's own story. And that sometimes begins with understanding other stories and how stories are told. We're constantly making up stories about ourselves as a way of just understanding who we are in the world. And whether we know it or not, we take all these events from our lives and we string them together in a little story, and that becomes our identity. And a lot of these kids in these organizations have a story about themselves that is negative. And so if you can begin to transform those stories and also allow them to transform their own identity by sort of empowering them, and it's something that they can always do for themselves forever. So if you want to be, the president of the United States or the president of Italy, you have to have certain advantages. If you want to be the best, football player in the world, you have to have certain physical advantages. But to be a storyteller, you don't need anything but a pencil or a pen, and you can do that, and anyone anywhere can do that, because everybody has their own story. So a lot of these kids, they come from a family or neighborhood that have very little, but they do have the ability to tell a story, to tell their own story, to be heard, and that just in and of itself can really transform their sense of themselves and their whole lives.
In your masterclass here at the Riviera International Film Festival, you will talk about your approach to acting as a process of self-harm, but also of self-healing. How cinema helped you to heal yourself?
Well, my experience in movies has been that it can be very cathartic. I didn't go to film school or acting school, theater really much at all. So it was something that I just sort of did out of need, and I find that what's necessary when I show up to play a part in a movie is that I bring a certain amount of emotion to the character, no matter what it is. It can just be like joy, or it can be sadness, or whatever. So having access to those feelings means being in touch with some of the things that have happened in your own life. But to be honest, I sort of forgot that that's what I was supposed to talk about at the masterclass. So maybe I should give it some more thought. But that's my answer for now, yeah.
And I read an Instagram post about your account where you talk about your attempt in a young age to become a musician. and about failure as a sort of treasure of experience to learn from.
Yeah.
And I would like to know if you think that cinema has the responsibility to tell a story about failure, especially in a historical moment where people seems to be so obsessed with success and perfection.
Oh yeah, I mean, success and failure are both imposters, you know. And when I began to sort of embrace that attitude, my own life got a lot easier, and it got easier to just work and do movies or do anything really, because it wasn't that I had to stop caring about those things, but because that was hard sometimes, because you're constantly, you do something and there's some feedback, whether you like it or not. And so to always try to keep that feedback, whether it's negative or positive, you know, at bay, can take a lot of effort. But if you just sort of start to see them as false narratives, really, that your own success and your own failure are both deceptions, you know, that it just becomes easier. They can just kind of float by you. I have had way more failure than I have had success. I've had some big sort of ups and downs, both personally and creatively and in every way. And so, my life just got a lot easier when I started to value the lows as opportunities to change and grow in different ways, and to see the highs as to be wary of them a little bit, you know. There was another actor who was older than I am, who had worked a lot more and was much better and all that. And he said to me he said, I don't know how it came up, but he said that if you're going to read your negative reviews and be dismissive of them, you know, then you have to take your best reviews with a grain of salt. You can't sort of lean into one or the other. And people have a propensity to. Some people really love their own good reviews and their success, and that becomes like a drug. Some people are sort of addicted to their own failure, and that becomes like a drug too. But if you're able to see both of them as imposters, it makes it easier to just sort of navigate through the world that you say is so obsessed with, you know, popularity and approval and success and all that, which is really destructive creatively.
Thank you so much for your time.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank
you very
you.
much.
Those are great questions.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.